We all have storms in our lives that cleanse, clear, and convert the aftermath into a rainbow. If you have the right attitude, you can grow and weather the storm. Let's talk about it now over Lunch with Stormy.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Lunch with Stormy. I have to say this week, I am coming to you live from the Mojave Desert. That's where quarantine and isolation has taken me. I bought this little piece of land on the border of Arizona and Nevada, and I decided to wait till it was a good 100 degrees out here to rent a 27-foot trailer and come to this land and build a greenhouse with my son, who's in his 30s, and my ex-husband, who I haven't seen for decades, really. So I've been out here working the land, building this greenhouse, and let me tell you, it's been a really interesting experience getting to know my ex-husband again. It's been fulfilling to think we're going to grow our own food, and, we're taking this quarantine time to, get grounded. But the truth is, it is so hot here. So yes, I've had some introspective time, and yes, I feel fulfilled, and I've had a lot of reflection, and I am hot as hell. It is hot as Hades out here. And there's very, very little people. In fact, I see them driving by every once in a while. There's these beautiful mountains in the rim of the Grand Canyon, which I totally appreciate. The full moon was epic. But I am pulling like these foxtails out of my Velcro dog every time he steps outside, to the point of, it's a part-time job. And I've figured out a way to actually isolate from isolation, which after the isolation, I didn't even think would be possible. And who would have thought, I don't know where everybody else is, but who would have thought that we'd all be wherever we are right now? And as hard as I think that these living conditions have been, they are nothing compared to what today's guest has actually experienced. So welcome to Lunch with Stormy, and I am excited to host Ethan Zohn. The world met Ethan, yes, applause and tons of it, when he completed and won season 3 of CBS Survivor Africa. He's been a part of national pop culture consciousness ever since. And honestly, he may be one of the most fascinating and respectable men in the world, because this man lives his life by leading by example. And I mean, every step of the way. It's unheard of today. But with his winnings from Survivor, he was the sole survivor in Africa. He used his $1 million to springboard not only a foundation, but an exceptional life of entrepreneurship, social purpose, advocacy. He's become a motivational speaker. He's an author and a humanitarian. And above all that, he is a true survivor, soul with an SOUL survivor, because he has kicked cancer's ass twice and continued to excel at everything he does. So Ethan's also on this year's Survivor Winners at War. And before we get started, I have to tell him 2 things. So I've watched Survivor for many years, but this quarantine thing, it's so ironic we're talking today. I have gone back and watched almost every season of Survivor. I couldn't get my brain to like settle and get into a good series or something, but I can stay in the Survivor thing all day, apparently, for many, many days. So I'm really grateful that it's there. My niece, the second thing is this, my niece and her husband are like super uber fans. They can tell you about moves that happened in past seasons. I'm sure you've met folks like that. A couple years ago, they started a family tournament, a family pool. So before Survivor starts, we all pick our winners. And no kidding, Ethan, you were my winner. And so I fell asleep. I was watching last night. I fell asleep on last night's episode. So don't tell me anything. We won't even ask, because I know the rules. But I just wanted to tell you that you're my guy. And if you win, I win like $300.
Well, I get 10% of that. You know that, right?
Yeah, maybe 15 in today's world. But I did want to tell you those 2 things. And I've followed you for many years and love all that you represent. And so what I want to start with today is just ask a couple questions of things I couldn't find, like your years before you became a grown up, your years before Survivor, and really, how you became so passionate about soccer by not just being good at it. You became extremely passionate about it. And it seemed to be like something that's propelled you through life. And so I want to start there. And welcome.
Well, first of all, thank you. It's an honor to have lunch with you. So this is a real treat. I am calling from the middle of the woods of New Hampshire. So I am isolated like yourself, a different type of environment, but we're both, I don't have many neighbors right now, and it's beautiful out. So I'm pretty happy to be where I am right now in terms of what's happening in the world. Let's just put it that way. But in terms of like my growing up, I guess I grew up outside Boston, Massachusetts, a place called Lexington, Massachusetts.
Love that.
Yeah, and kind of famous for Paul Revere, the shot heard round the world, Revolutionary War type. It's nice, small New England town. It's pretty cute. But playing soccer, I had two older brothers. So I was the youngest of three, and so we would always go in the backyard, and they just blast soccer balls at my face. And so in order to protect myself, I got pretty good, and then I kind of blossomed into this goalkeeper. So in soccer, I became a goalkeeper, and just growing up my whole life, I just loved the sport and everything the sport represented for me. And it more than winning and losing, but it's teamwork, it's camaraderie, it provided structure to my day. And I continued playing after high school into college, and then after college, I ended up playing professional for about 6 years.
That's amazing. And was that did you go pro before Survivor?
Yes. So before
young.
Survivor, I was playing professional soccer. So in one of those years, I played in Zimbabwe, and I played in the Zimbabwe Premier League, which was in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. And for me, it was a transformational experience in the sense that, one, I was playing another country, but I was one of two white people on the entire team in the entire league. And walking into a stadium of 40,000 people, and you're kind of just look different than everyone. And it's just, it was a really interesting life experience for me playing over there. And while I was there, I kind of witnessed what was happening with HIV and AIDS, and how it was just destroying this community that I was now a part of. And I saw the pain, saw the suffering. I had compassion for all these people that were touched by the single disease. And then one of my closest friends, the starting goalkeeper, this guy named Amon, ended up contracting HIV, kicked off the team, ostracized from the community, and lived the end of his life in a pretty sad, lonely way. And so that kind of was an impetus for me getting involved with philanthropy. And because of my time on Survivor Africa, and you get a grand prize of money, I was able to use that money to co-found a charity, Grassroot Soccer.
And let's talk about that. So one question, what made you sign up for Survivor? Because it was the third season. It was watched a lot. Like the viewership was insane. But what was it that made you go, I'm going to go live for 39 days and just rough it a little bit? Because that's not easy.
Yes. Well, it was a rapid succession of failures in my life that brought me to the point of applying to Survivor. So my playing career was spiraling out of control. I was living in New York City, trying out for teams, getting cut. I was coaching soccer on the side, and I just said, all right, I got to get a real job. So I got a job in advertising in New York City. Like I traded in my cleats and sweatpants for like suits and shoes and ties and belts. Like I didn't own that stuff. And so I got a job in advertising. And basically what happened was there was a nationwide hiring freeze in 2001. And they said, sorry, you're hired, but you're fired. And they just rescinded the contract. And I was like, screw this. Like, what am I going to do with my life? And I told my mom, and I said, Mom, I'm in between life choices. She says, honey, I think you're unemployed. I said, no, Mom, I'm in between life choices. I'm finding myself here. So my roommate and I were bored in New York City. We're like, what can we do today? We're both unemployed. There might've been a couple beers involved. I don't know. We ran around New York City, filmed a video for Survivor. I was supposed to make a video for him. He was supposed to make a video for me. We ran out of time for him, and we only sent in my video, and then I got picked for the show. So like, that's how I got on the show Survivor. And it was just, yeah, it was fun.
That's a fantastic story. What does your friend say about that today? Does he want 15%?
I took care of him, so we're even. It's good. It's good. Everyone was happy.
I bet you did. I bet you did. And then what kept you going back for additional seasons? Is there an addiction to it where it's like you become addicted to the surviving technique?
I am a gamer. Like, I am a competitor. I love athletics, competition. I saw Survivor as like the most perfect game on the planet. It touches every single part of you as a human being: mental, physical, social, spiritual, environmental, financial, right? So like, here you are pushing your body to the limit on the world stage with millions of people watching. It's such high stakes. That's what I liked about it. It was an adventure. It was athletics. It was the social side of it. It was the survival side of it. It's just everything. And never anywhere in the world will you be able to get that experience unless it's on Survivor. And for me, it really wasn't about the money for me. It was about winning the title of Survivor. No one's going to take the title away from me. The money's
That's right. That's right. And did you, is there anything that you kept you up at night? Like, oh, if I'd have made a not in the first season, but if I made a different decision or trusted a person differently, that's what I think about Survivor, is how much you would replay certain decisions over and over and over again, maybe for years. It could potentially ruin someone's life.
It has ruined some Survivor contestants' lives. I've been fortunate where, going into the game, Survivor wasn't necessarily like my life goal. Like, I didn't grow up my entire life saying, I want to win Survivor. It was around at the time. I got in early, which I was pretty happy about. Reality TV was just starting at that time. And so I felt like I had an entire life outside of Survivor. So if things didn't go my way out there, I'd be okay with it, a little upset. Plus, like, as an athlete, you learn how to be a little bit more resilient. I feel like you can lose a game, let in a penalty shot, lose a championship, but you got to get up the next day and you got to get right back on the field and you got to continue playing, because that's your job. And so not only do you have to learn how to win, you got to learn how to lose, and you got to be able to recover from those losses. And so I think some of the people that where this game destroys them are the ones where they just build it up so big in their life as a life moment, so that when they get there and they achieve it and things don't go their way, it just really hits them hard. And I feel bad for those folks. But for me, it's always just been a game. And that's kind of how I look at it.
That's pretty motivational. I think you could take that and apply it to many instances in life where people make a decision and they get so excited and it doesn't work out. And then they beat themselves up for, who knows how long.
Yeah. I mean, I look at failure as, I don't know, it's almost like a blessing, like I never worry about failing. I just worry about all the things I'll miss if I don't even try. So for me, failing is just not trying. And I'm open to trying everything, because when you fail, you learn something about yourself, and you can learn from those experiences. And I recently learned, from my rabbi, shocker, but that in Hebrew, the word for a challenge and the word for a miracle share the same root word, which is Nes, N-E-Y-S. And that's because when life throws you challenges, it brings out miraculous things in us. And like, these challenges aren't supposed to beat you down, but the opposite. They're supposed to build you up, empower you, make you stronger as a human being. So like, after these challenges, you can come back as someone who can make a big impact as an individual or an impact as a community. And so going on Survivor, running a marathon, trying a new business and failing, for me, that's all a success, because you just learn stuff from those moments, from those failing moments.
I think failure is a tough word. Like, I love rabbis. I'm not Jewish, but I do, I've been blessed enough to have some interactions with rabbis, and they're so wise. I don't know what it is, but the one I've spoken with is Rabbi Benny Zippel. He's out of Utah, out of Salt Lake City, but he's always, anytime I've met this man, like, just the best words of advice and words of wisdom. And I think using the word challenge versus failure might, be something we should all adopt, because there's really no failures as long as you're getting up the next day and you're breathing and standing, and so many small, simple things that I think, the isolation is reminding all of us of. there are challenges, but are there really failures as long as you get to take another step forward?
Agree. Yes. Wise words at lunch.
Yeah. Wise words through Rabbi inspiration. But Survivor is really a small piece of the things that you've accomplished. And I think when you won and said at your tribal council, like, I'm going to take some of this money and I'm going to really start something. And I don't know how many years ago that you won Survivor, but you did start something, and that something still exists today. Grassroot Soccer. And I love any story where you find a passion as a kid. It's why I asked about soccer with you being a child, is you found this passion as a kid and really, like, it's still alive today as you're an old man. Just kidding.
Thank you.
I got a few years on you, Ethan, but, so I can kind of say that. An old young man. But this organization, this foundation, is still in existence today. So do you want to talk about, like, where, I think you were a co-founder, and how what started that? Because it was HIV and it was soccer, and you found the way to bring your passions and your compassionateness into one.
Yes, it's a huge part of my life. I touched on it briefly, having lived in Zimbabwe and just seeing what was happening with HIV and AIDS and how it was just impacting people around me and my friends. Because sometimes statistics, they numb you to what the real problems are, but they're not just faceless numbers. They're your friends, they're your family, your teammates. So for me, at that time in my life, I was 27 years old and living in Zimbabwe, and I didn't really know what I could do about this huge problem. So I didn't do anything. I said, it's not my problem. It's in a land far away. Someone else will deal with it. So then I return home to the United States. I go on Survivor. Survivor was filmed in Africa, in Kenya. And while I was playing the game of Survivor, I won a reward challenge, which I won 2 goats, which I wasn't so happy about. But I got to take these goats to this little village of Wamba. And before I left this village of Wamba, I was hanging out in the parking lot of Wamba Hospital. And all these little Kenyan children came out. And they were touching my skin. They were playing with my Jufro, like they had never seen anyone like me before. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember, that's when I busted out this. It was a little mini song called a hacky sack. This is a replica, but we started playing and we're laughing and we're smiling and we're communicating through the sport that we both love. And before I left, I just tossed this hacky sack to one of these little Kenyan kids. And I realized that, like, a toy to me was a luxury to this little kid. So right there, at that moment, in the middle of this cutthroat game of Survivor, I had that real life experience, because I asked one of the nurses before I left this hospital, why are all these kids just hanging out here? And she says, these are the kids that are HIV positive. So it's like, here I go again. I had Africa playing there, now Survivor, HIV. So when I came back, that's when I met up with some soccer buddies of mine. We created a charity called Grassroot Soccer, and we are an adolescent health organization that's using the power of soccer to educate, inspire, and mobilize young people to overcome their greatest health challenges and live healthier, more productive lives.
The universe made you do this. Yeah. Right? It kept slapping you in Africa.
Yeah.
Even though it's a hacky sack, it's still your foot and a little ball.
Yep.
And HIV, that is definitely a calling.
Definitely a calling, yeah. And so then that happened. We started the organization, and then I got asked back to play Survivor All-Stars, which was in 2004, and I negotiated to wear this shirt right here, which is my Grassroot Soccer t-shirt. This is literally the shirt I wore in Survivor All-Stars.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It smells like BO.
What does it smell like? Yeah.
Fire and body odor and crushed dreams. Basically what it smells like. But yeah, so like this, I didn't want to wear a yellow shirt. They're like, you have to wear a yellow shirt. I'm like, I'm not wearing a yellow shirt. I said, well, can I put my charity on it? They're like, sure. So then this blew us out of the water, and we're still going strong today, 20 years later. We're in 60 countries now. We've graduated 2.9 million kids from the program.
Oh my gosh, Ethan.
Yeah, it's not just a little charity. So Survivor, I know, like, it's this great show that's creating fans around the world, but it's also saving lives, and people don't really know that. Well,
you took that upon yourself to make sure that it did. I mean, and that's what people need to know, is that I said it in the beginning, but you're really a different type. The world needs more you. Oh. That's what I think. So you're even bigger accomplishments and bigger inspirations. And you speak openly about this, or I wouldn't even ask. but you were diagnosed with cancer. And by this time, you are a public figure. Everybody knows your name. You're out there. I remember hearing this. And, you know, I've been blessed to not have such a diagnosis. I have friends, you know, we all know someone who's been affected. And the fear and the vulnerability is so great. And then you're in the public eye and you're like answering to the world about your decisions or what you choose to do next. And I know that this kind of leads into your cannabis advocacy, but you were denied or couldn't get advice from a doctor regarding alternative treatments or alternative, maybe more holistic ways to cope. And I saw your video, your Ethan survivor video that you did with how the radiation was attacking your body, and just wanted to give listeners a little bit of insight into the moment. Being in the public eye, I can't imagine what that was like, and then having to go through it over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways I looked at this thing. One, going through something like cancer publicly was just as scary as probably going through it, privately in your own. Because, however, I had a really interesting opportunity, I guess you can say. Like it goes back to what I was talking about, challenge, miracle. Like, I live by the saying to never let a crisis go to waste, because it's an opportunity.
That's a good one.
To do some really important things, right? So here I am in the middle of my fight for my life, trying to make sense of all of this. Like, why did this happen to me? I was 35 years old. I was on top of the world. I was training for the New York City Marathon, happy, healthy, young guy, right? But then I got sideswiped by a rare form of blood cancer, went through chemotherapy, radiation. I had a bone marrow transplant, which was good for a little while. Cancer returned just 20 months later. I had to go through it all again, more chemo, more radiation, another bone marrow transplant. This time I used my brother Lee as the donor. So I've actually officially changed my name. My name is now Lethan. And I'm no longer my mom's favorite son, which is like the worst part about this whole cancer thing. But my brother's like elevated in the family because he donated his stem cells to save my life. But anyway, that's a whole nother podcast. But anyway, so like this whole thing that was happening to me at this time, I was like, my presenting symptom was really itchy skin. So like, I didn't want anyone else to have to go through what I went through. So I really made a choice to take my battle public, because I felt like the details of my life could help someone else out there. And, since I've gone public with my story, like I've kept track, and we're at like 36 people who have said, because I saw you here, or I read about you, or blog, whatever that, I went to the doctor because I had that same crazy itch and I got diagnosed earlier. So helping other people get diagnosed earlier or manage their cancer care has made it worthwhile for me to share my story. And so I think that's kind of one of the silver linings of being in the public eye when you get a health crisis or going through a life moment like that. So for me, that was kind of the path I took. It's not for everyone, but I really feel that focusing on the plight of other human beings helps you heal as a human being. So that's why I made that choice, because it helped me, helped other people. It just gave me a sense of purpose of why I'm going through this horrible moment. It's to help other people.
And you didn't use cannabis as a treatment. You went through, and that's important because there's a lot of contradictory information about cannabis right now, where someone might use it as a treatment and they have a miraculous result. Science is coming, folks. We'll learn exactly if it can be used as a treatment later in life. But eventually you found CBD, which is a non-psychoactive piece of cannabis, to help with anxiety. And I also do. CBD is amazing for me with anxiety. I don't know that it's amazing for everyone. I've had some folks say it doesn't really work for them, but it does help me sleep. And so wanted to talk to you about how you came into that when a doctor wouldn't prescribe it, and how you found more fight there.
Yeah. So the doctor, so when I was going through cancer, I didn't have access to cannabis or CBD. I was living in New York City. I would literally be walking on the streets, mask, gloves, bald with chemo, meeting my drug dealer. or not my drug dealer, a drug dealer,
Everybody's drug dealer.
everybody's drug dealer, right? Who sold everything in addition to cannabis, right? So like, I didn't know anything. Like, it could be pesticides, mold, sprayed with all junk. Like, but here I am, like, completely vulnerable health wise, and, you know, stressing over the fact that I have cancer. Now I'm doing something illegal, trying to get medicine that's going to help me, because I was popping just to go to bed at night. I was taking like Zofran for nausea, Ambien for sleep, Percocet for pain, Ativan for anxiety. And then I wake up in the morning and I have to take like an Adderall just to get enough energy to go see the doctor. So like, I was on this vicious cycle of synthetics, and I just needed something different. And so I started making some brownies, and I used them. They did have THC in them at the time, because I read about, like, I just knew about it. Like,
It
I
helps
never
with pain. Yeah.
helps with pain. Like, I was an athlete. I didn't really dig into the cannabis stuff. Like, I tried it once in college because I wanted to try something crazy in college. And that was
Woo!
my crazy. Smoke weed. But
What?
anyway, so I knew the benefits that it had towards mitigating the side effects of cancer treatment. So I got into it, helped me a lot. But then when I was done with cancer, I wasn't, you know, as into it. However, the anxiety and the fear and the dump trucks full of uncertainty, the invisible scars that needed healing after you're a young adult that survived cancer, and you have to pick up your life and live the rest of your life. Like, I'm 40 years old. I got my whole life in front of me. Like, what if the chemo didn't work? Like, what if I don't find someone to marry me? What if I don't have kids? What if I lose my job? Like, there's so much anxiety and fear in my life. I just got in this destructive loop of decisions, and I couldn't get out of it. And someone introduced me to CBD, and I started taking it like a multivitamin every morning, 25 milligrams in the form of a tincture. And it just really, I don't know how I can explain it, but it's like, there's just so much clutter and stuff going on in my brain, and I was just ruminating on these thoughts, and it kind of calmed it down a little bit and opened up some space for me to have other thoughts. And I could take like a deep breath again, and I could just start living. I wasn't living. And I just could start living again. And if I need something stronger, I will dig into like a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning it's 1 part CBD, 1 part THC. And that kind of is a little bit more strong if I'm having a particularly stressful or day full of anxiety.
Well, and I think that's something to be said for, you know, we've touched briefly on the pain thing, and a couple of things here. One, you know, we talk a lot about PTSD with cannabis and healing, and it's mostly, you know, that term's mostly reserved for veterans.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like, you know, coming out of this, there is post-traumatic stress disorder when you get diagnosed with something as horrific as cancer, and have to come off it. And the second thought was, you know, here you are on all of these pain pills, and a lot of people don't talk about how hard it is, veterans included, after accidents, but you're on pain pills for whatever you're going through, but then you have to come off of them, and they're extremely addicting. You know, so you fight a disease, and then you have to fight an addiction or a withdrawal. And, you know, did you find cannabis helpful during that time, or would you say that's...
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily going through withdrawal. I mean, some of the drugs that they had me on, all prescribed. I'm just putting this out there.
Right.
I was afraid of becoming addicted. I didn't necessarily become addicted. I was afraid of that because I had friends around me that, you know, got involved with that stuff, and I saw how destructive it could be. But I definitely felt some of the minor, I would feel like, withdrawals, because they had me on prednisone, which isn't necessarily like a drug that you get addicted to, but I felt what it was like coming off of that. It's not a painkiller. It's I don't know,
steroid.
Really strong steroid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So coming off that, and even when I was in hospital, I was attached to a pain pump. I was on Dilaudid for about 15 days. And I remember myself, I mean, the pain was so excruciating, I had no other choice. But I remember they give you a pump. You can only press it every 30 minutes. And I remember just looking at the clock, just waiting for that 30 minutes. And I'm like, what am I turning into right now? Like, and so I asked them to like cut me off. And so we weaned myself off that stuff, because I just started to feel that a little bit of the taste of what it'd be like to be dependent on something. And I just didn't like that feeling. So I was looking for alternative therapies, alternative ways. And I truly believe that nature is the world's pharmacy. And that's why hemp and CBD and cannabis has properties that haven't even been discovered yet, but right now it's a big part of my life. And another reason why I invested in a big hemp farm in Plainfield, Vermont called Mont Kush. And that's actually this right here. So this is Mont Kush right there.
That's the best shirt, dude.
Yeah, right? It means happy
Yes.
mountain. We're a 116-acre hemp field in Plainfield, Vermont. We have all organic, high altitude, sun-grown hemp that we process chemical-free, solvent-free into a CBD tincture. And all we use is a giant rosin press. We have something called the Sasquatch. It's the second largest rosin press in the world. So just a little bit of heat and 2,000 pounds of pressure, and the juice that comes out after you fresh squeeze these hemp plants is the stuff we put in our bottle that you put in your mouth. And so it's the exact fingerprint of the plant and the genetics in the plant that's going inside your body. So that for me was really important to get involved with a farm where I saw the process from the start to the end, to where it's in the bottle.
You know, I saw in one of your videos that you mentioned, I'm a supporter of plant medicine, and cannabis has been the gateway for me to learn more about plant medicine. And I believe the same thing. You know, if you spend time in Peru, they will teach you all about the plants and what's giving you vitamin D and what you do for a headache. You never take an aspirin, you drink a peppermint tea, and, you know, you just kind of adjust the way you think. But you mentioned in one of your videos that along with your chemotherapy, I think you actually mentioned a plant, a flower or something that helped you sleep. Is that right?
Yes and no. So basically, one of the chemotherapy drugs that I was on, called vincristine, was derived from a rare African flower called the rosy periwinkle. And so that right there, you know, obviously it's been chemicalized and made into a chemotherapy, which is pretty hard on your body. But the fact that it was derived from this flower from nature
in Africa.
Oh yes, I didn't even know about that.
Full circle. Yeah.
Oh, wow, interesting. Whoa, I didn't put it together until right now. It's pretty good. So that just kind of gave me faith in the process, that, you know, about the environment. And listen, I'm not the most, I wouldn't say I'm a hippie, you know, I enjoy nature, but and I completely give modern medicine the check mark for saving my life. Like this stuff that I'm doing, the alternative stuff, I don't think that cured me in any way, but it did help me manage some of the side effects that come along with a cancer or a life-threatening illness.
Yeah, I would never throw out Western medicine. I think it's miraculous and amazing, but I do think plant medicine, there's room for it. We haven't explored it enough to substitute anything, but I love, my lavender and the basil and all of the turmeric and all of the things that you learn about online and can maybe be preventative. I look at plant medicine as being something that may be preventative to some of the, the diseases that are out there. And if we get more plants in, maybe we can fight better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yes.
Yeah. So tell me this, when you, as an athlete, I love when athletes come out in support of cannabis. And the reason I love that is it was prohibited for so long, and it does take everyone to get over the stigma. Did you experience any of that? When you were buying or making your brownies, were people judging you back then? Cannabis has come so far, right? I love that we can openly talk about your hemp farm, and you can proudly wear a t-shirt.
It's not my hemp farm. I'm involved with the hemp farm.
Yeah, you're there too. They need you, Ethan. They need you. But did you have any of that stigma at all during your bouts with cancer?
No, I didn't. I was fearful that I would, and I was extremely cautious with letting certain people know. Like I was deathly afraid of telling my mom that I use cannabis. I don't know why, but basically,
it's scary. They were reefer madness. Yeah.
Coming out of the closet for cannabis to my mom was more scary than coming out to the world. But I think because there is a lot of stigma associated with it, and because I'm coming as an athlete, but from the medical side of things, and I see this as a medicine. I see it as a tool that's just helped me deal with some of the stuff I'm going through because of a health challenge. So I'm not necessarily promoting it as a recreational type situation. However, like I'm not against it by any means, but for me particularly, this is something that I use as a medicine, like a multivitamin, like an aspirin. You know, that's our biggest competition these days. It's not, you know, all the other cannabis companies. It's like against like the Tylenols. It's, you know, all that stuff. That's who we're competing against. And that's why when I got involved with Mont Kush, I moved up there. I moved up there this past summer after I got home from Survivor, and I wanted to be part of it. So the guy that started the farm, this guy Anthony Sullivan, who you might recognize from TV because
yes, as seen on TV.
Yes, as seen on TV, OxyClean guy, that's him.
Love.
And so his daughter has some genetic disorders and has a lot of problems with like epilepsy and seizures, having a lot of seizures. So he gave her CBD, and it completely transformed her life and obviously his life, but because it just made the situation better. So he's like, all right, I'm buying a farm. And I'm like, well, if you're buying a farm to grow something, put in your daughter's body, I want in on that because I want to put it in my body. And you're obviously going to do something great with it because you have to, it's your daughter. So that's why I moved up there. I planted, I harvested, I processed it. I watched it go into the bottle. I just wanted to be part of this and get my hands dirty from like seed all the way to sales in these bottles.
I had a similar experience, though not on that level, is when I left my previous world and wanted to explore the cannabis industry. That's the first thing I did was go work in a grow because I thought it was important just to understand the life cycle of this plant and learn about how it's cared for. And I enjoyed it completely. I've learned I'm not an agriculturalist, so it's amazing I'm doing a greenhouse right now. But I did, you know, experiencing that and seeing it go. I worked within medicinal dispensaries only, and seeing it go to a patient of all ages with many different diagnoses, but all finding some sort of relief from this plant with THC, without THC, but they all had different stories, and they were all worthy of being talked about and all worthy of scientific research. And none of them, you know, should be left to the side. And that's what really propelled me into this industry, was once I started learning about the medicine. I do think that folks, you know, I was a recreational user or consumer, and I do think that even in those instances, you know, when you hear about the potheads or something, there are probably people with high anxiety. Maybe, you know, they could have ADD. I don't want to diagnose anyone or label them anything, but as science is proving out, it seems like, you know, they're using it as a substitute for something else. You know, and I think that that's why the science with this plant is so very, very important, because it'll get us targeted and we'll be actually addressing issues that people are running around with every day.
Yes. I mean, you said it perfectly. Exactly. I absolutely agree with everything you're saying. You know, it's been illegal. It's been legal longer than it's been illegal, you know, in the grand scheme of things. And
Yes.
back in Prohibition, it was just, they made a choice, alcohol, cannabis, and they went with alcohol to legalize again. And yeah, I firmly believe that the more we share our stories, like your story, my story, that's the most effective tool we can have as part of the cannabis community. Share these stories of success and transformation, because the more people that know about the plant and that are using the plant and can share stories of health and healing, the more the world knows about it. And I think more change can happen because of that.
You know, when I worked in the dispensaries, I was working with young kids. I call them young kids, but they were actually adults. But they had moved to Denver. You know, they had Crohn's disease or IBD, and had doctors wanting to put them on pharmaceuticals, and they took it upon themselves to go experience with plant medicine. And I learned the most from them from the time. And I was able to come off of all pharmaceuticals. I was, you know, taking something to sleep, taking something for anxiety, and using cannabis maybe, you know, to fall asleep on certain nights or to relieve stress. And what I learned was if I used cannabis with intent, like with the idea of, I also have stomach issues, so I, you know, sometimes can go a week without eating. So I, you know, when I use,
You win.
I'm so weak. It's like I wouldn't win a single challenge. I wouldn't be a threat. They'd be like, oh, we'll take her to the end.
We'll
Maybe
be
I
like
should go.
Adam. It'll be fine.
Yes. But if you use it with intent and you explore what is available for education right now, and there's good things out there now, you are able, or I was able, to make an adjustment from pharmaceuticals towards plants. And it wasn't just cannabis. The smarter I became, the more I was able to supplement with various aids. They're all crutches, and it's okay to use a crutch. You need a crutch to get through certain times in your life. And that's how I stumbled into this plant medicine thing and became so very passionate about it.
Wonderful. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's wonderful. A lot of people, more people should explore.
Yes, they should. So the other thing I want to talk to you about is you waited late in life to get married. You have such a great love story. And I just wanted to ask, like, do you want to have children? Do you want to recreate your epicness and maybe pass it on a little bit?
Well, that's a long story, but the kid thing, that ship has sailed. We have 2 cats. We met in an incredible time in my life. I'd just been launched from the hospital. I was on my recovery for cancer. And, I met my now wife. Her name's Lisa Haywood. She's an interior designer from New York City. And we met and we had a long courtship because of my health. I wasn't really able to be in public. Like, after my thing with cancer is exactly kind of what's going on in the world today. I was living a life of isolation, masked, gloves, no public places, no restaurants, no stadiums, no foods, no movie theaters, no taxis, subways, none of that stuff. So our courting process was interesting because we couldn't touch, couldn't, kiss, we couldn't do any intimate stuff. So we just hung out, and she would pick me up in her car and we drive around the city together because I couldn't be in public. That was like a safe space for us. And so it was nice because we really developed an incredible friendship, and then obviously which turned into love. And then we got married in 2016. And I was a little late. We waited our whole life to find each other. She's
That's
older
beautiful.
than I am, and we just, the kid thing wasn't in our cards. We tried, but just didn't work out.
Well, you've helped many of them by doing what you do. So maybe it would have been a distraction from saving a lot of people in the world.
Well,
you never know.
She's like, if we have kids, I can't spend as much time focusing on you. And I'm like, oh, you're right. Okay, well, no kids.
No kids.
Attention on this guy right here.
Yeah. Do you like cats? Do you just like cats?
Well, the cat story is even more fun because basically we were dating and she had strep throat, and we were fearful that, like, if I had strep throat as a transplant survivor, it's a deadly situation. And so what ended up happening is she was a carrier. We thought she was fine. I got it. I had to go to the hospital. It was a scary situation. And she was so sad and like distraught and traumatized that she almost killed me, that she was just Googling cute kitty photos on YouTube. And she found these adorable shaded golden teacup Persian kitties. And she's like, I need 2 of them, not 1, but 2. She flew to Minnesota. She got the cat. She brought him back. And then when I was finally like healthy enough to see them, I could go see them. And then I became a cat guy instantly.
I love Lisa. I think she's
right here.
Hey, get over here. Say hi. I love her. Where is she? I do this like I can see down the Zoom place. Well,
she's about to get in the bathtub, and that's also another. We don't even have a shower at our house. That's how off the grid we are. We only have a bath. So,
are you in New Hampshire or Vermont? Did you say?
We're in New Hampshire.
Beautiful place to be. Yes. There's nothing like the New England in the summertime. It is, the only time I do the East Coast. I got to stay away from it in the winter.
We're getting snow tonight.
No.
That's not so nice.
And it's a full moon. It's like the flower moon.
Uh-oh. Interesting. I don't know what that means, snow? But it sounds good.
Well, it's the last super moon of the year. And I don't really know what all that means. It just looks bigger. Looks like it's closer. I don't think the moon actually